Everything you need to know about commercial aviation. This is Layovers.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard from the flight deck. This is Paul Papadimitriou.
Hello everybody, this is Alex Hunter.
We'll be your pilots for this show about the news, the startups and the technologies defining the modern air travel experience.
Our flight time today, 1 hour and 2 minutes, and we expect an on-time arrival. Coming up on this flight, will cost-cutting Etihad and suffering Lufthansa merge? Norwegian gets approval in the US. Is British Airways really ready to offer food on demand in business class? Boom iterates in supersonic speed for its first prototype jet. Another airline introduces fares without overhead bin access. Qatar increases the noise level on its upcoming super business seat. Emirates is not happy at all with Rolls-Royce. How long will we wait for Heathrow's third runway? Alex gets delayed for 10 hours in JFK. I fly first on Qantas, and I glare over the new king of noise-cancelling headphones. And I apologize for the quality of my voice during this flight.
As we reach our cruising altitude, I'm going to turn off the fasten seatbelt sign for you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and let's turn on those noise-cancelling headphones.
And we're back in the air and on the air. Flight 47 to JFK. Hi, Alex.
Who is this? This voice sounds familiar from my distant past.
we have to apologize to our listeners. You cannot imagine the number of emails, tweets, DMs, whatever. God, where are you guys? Did you fall? Did you stop? Do you not like flying anymore? I mean, we had so much support and so much, of course, complaints. We're very, very, very sorry, guys. It was a lot of reasons why. First of all, the irony is that because we simply flew a lot, like really a lot.
Yeah, it was crazy this year.
Crazy. Yeah. The past year, a happy new year. It's 2017. that was the first thing, so which, you kind of, let's record next week. We don't have time. Oh, where are you? Oh, I'm in the US. Where are you? Oh, I'm in the Middle East. So it was really impossible for us to record. Then I had to move my office. My office moved, so that also took me off broadband for a little while. Then I had also a personal thing. My father passed away, like at the end of the next year. So again, we had to push that, and it made me also very absent and I'm still quite absent from London. So it's a lot of stuff that pushed us, but we're back, and we promise you that we will record more regularly in 2017 than we did in 2016, because we both kind of said that we wish that we traveled slightly less this year, because we both had a record year last year in terms of travels. Did you?
Yeah, I absolutely did. I smashed my own record. And I felt exactly like you said. By the end of it, I was ready to not travel anymore. And that's quite a thing coming out of my mouth.
Yeah,
I was just,
me too.
I was done with it. It was a lot of long haul flying, but for very short periods of time, which is pretty draining. So yeah, I was ready to stop by my last trip, which was Beirut with you.
Oh yeah. So that was one of the other reasons we pushed back, is that I was involved in that conference as one of the organizers. And that I was not only, you called Beirut my new home for a little bit, because I was going there literally every week or so. And
yeah, it was
also
crazy.
I was working a lot for it. It was successful. Thank you for coming. But
no, it was a blast. It was so much fun. We filmed an attaché out there as well, which was really fun. So yeah, I think it was great. And Beirut is quite a place.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Thank you for recording your attaché show there, because it's a different feel, but I really loved it. It's been quite successful. I think people really clicked with it. So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun, and I think the massive Lebanese diaspora has kind of gravitated towards it. So it was fun. I'm glad I got a chance to do that.
So that's not the only travels we did. There were so many. So what we're going to do, because there were so much stuff we missed in the past almost 4 months now, 5 months since we last recorded.
Oh my God.
That we're not going to cover all our travels in this show. We're going to just sprinkle over the next few shows and some stories that were important that we missed. But at the same time, we still want to be very close to what happens today. I got an email today that reminded of you. I think it was actually, yesterday, by Alaska. Haha, we'll get there. The email said, "Hello, Jet Setter. 9,310,632. That's the most miles earned by one traveler in 2016.
What?
Yeah, that's in the email." So I was like, "Is that you?" No, because Well, how do you feel now that the acquisition is basically done?
Quite weird. I don't know how I feel. I honestly still don't really fully understand what's going to happen. I don't think they've made any decisions about how they're going to integrate the experience and the brands, or what's going to happen with the Virgin America brand. All I know is that late last year they were given approval by the various governmental organizations that they can finish the acquisition, and so the deal is closed and Virgin America's off the stock market and they are moving towards being a single company. So yeah, it was very strange. I did have a very therapeutic experience in October. I flew from San Francisco to LA and then LA to DC on Virgin America in first class. And it was a nice reminder that it was still such a great airline, and it was a way to sort of say goodbye to the airline that it means so much to me. So I think that really helped kind of get me over it. But again, I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens because they are such different airlines. I think that the wailing and gnashing of teeth is over. Even for people like me, it's sort of, you deal with it and you move on. But just from a purely industry fanatic's perspective, I'm very interested to see what 2017 holds for that company. Both of them.
And I retweeted some from the account lay_overs at lay_overs. You also published a few of very original artwork and other stuff from the early days of Virgin America. That was really interesting as well.
Yeah, I need to get back on that because I have like a whole hard drive full of this stuff. And it was just either things that we'd worked on that never saw the light of day, or that did very, very briefly, that were kind of very ephemeral part of the Virgin America launch stuff that I thought, well, there's no point in just sitting on this. So I started publishing it. People got a kick out of it, both that were directly involved or are aviation and airline industry fans. So I'll keep doing that. Keep an eye on my Twitter account, and I'll keep pumping that stuff out.
Yeah, and I'll try to retweet most of it because the Twitter account has been super quiet, our account, because, of course, we were not recording. So now I was using your stuff to actually feed it up. Also, since we're talking about the changes in industry, I mean, the news that just was like 2 days ago, we're recording today, it's January 19th, 2017. It's the potential merger of Lufthansa and Etihad. Wow. Stunning.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw that somebody tweeted at one of the many, many industry accounts that I follow, and I immediately sent it to you, and we're like, we have so many questions. And I went on airliners, and of course there it was, and people were like, yeah, right, this isn't even a real source. Somebody give me a real source. And then there was Reuters and all these other places that are legit. And of course the tone of the conversation changed immediately. So what a thing.
I mean, we know they're suffering. We know that also, that's interesting, Etihad is suffering as well, because Etihad, out of the three, just had announced a cost-cutting program. They were laying off people, which, everybody always says, the ME3, basically they have all the plush money they want, they can do whatever they want. No, are they actually thinking of actually cost-cutting and including laying people off? We know that Etihad also had this, out of the three, they have this very peculiar way of expanding by acquiring stakes in other airlines, including one in Germany or Berlin, which, by the way, is not working that well, apparently. So maybe they're just saying, you know what, instead of sprinkling our little bits of stakes here and there, we should go for one large acquisition, which is a very big, important, and create a European, even worldwide strategy. I'm not saying that Lufthansa is up for the taking, because Lufthansa is still a very strong company, but it seems that they're interested. There's two scenarios. One scenario would have Etihad buy only a 40%, 40% of Lufthansa, which is big. The other would be a full-fledged merger. I don't know, Luftihad or Lufthansa or something. Especially in the light of the dynamic of, the anti-Middle Eastern. If suddenly Lufthansa, which is one of the main drivers of the airlines in Europe, is allied with Etihad, a Middle Eastern airline, it might also change the entire dynamic of the European Union against the Middle Eastern airlines. It's really, it could be staggering.
Yeah, and I think I messaged you to this question as well, which is, would this ever pass EU scrutiny for anti-competitive behavior? Those are two huge airlines, but I guess because of their regional focus, obviously Lufthansa in Europe and Etihad in the Middle East, perhaps they would be exempt from such scrutiny, but I doubt it. And of course, the U.S. governmental organizations would have a say as well. So I think it would be. I mean, Lufthansa, they're also not having great times and haven't been having great times in a long time.
They had less strikes in 2016 than they had in 2015. And I mentioned strikes because it's still a sign that, stuff is not going that well. Interestingly, one of the things that happened whilst we were not recording was that in the US, they have a new president, Trump. I mean, we're not going to do politics here, but one thing that this, in the light of what I just said, could actually matter is that we had this whole story, which was our saga since the beginning of our podcast about the US airlines versus the Middle Eastern airlines. And they basically had lost. The U.S. airlines had lost the plot. There was, nothing's going to happen. The Department of Transport would say, forget it. But now that Trump, which is allegedly, protectionist is the word, or defending American interests, depending on which side you're on, suddenly maybe there could be something where this could be reignited. Might be that, Trump administration might say, we're going to actually block other airlines from around the world for having too much stakes in the U.S. market. I don't know. It's, one sign, and we cannot read too much into it because we don't know the strategy. Warren Buffett had bought, because maybe he felt that, had bought stakes in those U.S. airlines, thinking thus that their stock would raise, that maybe they would be more protected. That's an hypothesis. So, interesting times ahead.
Yeah. I don't think that whole argument has gone away. I think it's going to come back, as you say. And then I think there'll be scrutiny on the Boeing-Iran Air deal, which seemed like it was settled and done in a huge, huge order for Boeing and for Airbus as well. But so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see those when and if those conversations bubble back up again.
Since we're in the U.S., you traveled quite a lot to the U.S. You did a lot of back and forth, right?
I did a ton back and forth, mainly to the West Coast. I did L.A., I did San Diego, I did San Francisco, I did Oakland, but also did D.C., as I mentioned earlier, which I hadn't been to since I was born there.
You were born in D.C.? I didn't even know
I was born in D.C. and then left when I was 6 weeks old, so it's not a place that I can claim any kind of attachment or affiliation to, but I loved it. DC is great.
You had told us in a previous recording that you had done some type of magical booking in order to reduce your costs. I think you were doing, not open jaws, but you were mixing inbound and outbound.
Yes.
So can you explain?
That's exactly. Yeah. That's right. To avoid the Saturday night stay rule, because I was going midweek for less than a week, and when you don't stay for Saturday night, you just get absolutely reamed on fares because they assume that you're a business traveler and somebody else is paying for it. And so you have no access to the lower fare buckets, which is complete BS, but it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. And I was really, really getting frustrated. And then I thought, wait, I'm going to the US a lot and I'm doing all these back and forth. Why don't I book separate returns for the separate journeys so I could do, even if I had to do sort of San Francisco on Monday and back on Wednesday, but I knew I was going to LA in 6 weeks, I could do the inbound and the outbound across the two trips and then reverse it for the other two legs. And that means that on paper, it looks like I'm staying in America for like 6 weeks, but really I'm not. I'm just picking up the return leg of the first booking. So it was kind of fun. It saved me a fortune, an absolute fortune. And it meant I could justify going in what British Airways calls World Traveler Plus or Premium Economy, which is a small cabin.
How is that?
It really, really depends on the aircraft. On the 380, it's pretty good. On the 747, it's not great. The IFE is new on all of them, but on the 747, they've reupholstered the old seats. And my son and I were on the way back a couple of days ago, and it's not comfortable. But it meant I got upgraded to business class because it's such a small cabin, and those are very, very busy routes. So I was upgraded twice.
Twice? Without asking?
Without asking, I was just, beep, scan the thing, and you're upgraded. But it's definitely, I know it's a little bit of an outlier scenario where you're traveling back and forth so much. But if you're doing it within a year, you're going to be going back and forth, and you aren't staying for that Saturday night, you can save literally thousands of dollars or pounds or pesos or yen or whatever you're paying in by having a look at if you can overlap 2 round trips to offset that cost. Flyer Talk is a goldmine for stuff like that.
Yeah, I still think that rule is
it's nonsense.
Outdated, yeah.
It's really exploitative, and it's very, very frustrating, but this is a rather satisfying way of getting around. There's others like booking a holiday So, you go through the airlines, flights and hotel stuff, or tacking on an ancillary product to it, like a rental car or something. But that didn't actually work for me. Other people had shown that it can work, but this worked really, really well for me.
I mean, I'm almost gold on BA, but I still think they're way too expensive to go to the US. So I would still fly a Norwegian. And talking about Norwegian, that's the other story that happened whilst we were not recording. Interestingly, the EU was about to go to arbitration. There's an arbitration clause in the Open Skies Agreement between the US and the EU saying that, hey guys, you're still refusing. They're not even refusing. They were just not taking any decision about Norwegian and their new landing rights. And like a day later, maybe or something, suddenly, the Norwegian got its license. So.
Yeah, I mean, having been involved in DOT approvals in the past, the amount of backroom machinations that go on is staggering. They never ever are brought to the attention of the public. So who knows what conversations happened and what deals were struck to make this actually get over the line. But it is over the line, and it's wonderful because not only are they a great airline, it's fantastic for the traveling public to have more competition, especially on tidal routes. So it's great. I'm delighted for them. I still haven't flown on them. I need to change that, but I'm really, really happy that that's finally over the line.
Yeah, it's always hard to choose a non-alliance airline when you have all those miles and you want to make sure that you get your status or whatever. And of course, then you go, should I really, but at the same time, again, at least from London, I think that the prices to go to the US are outrageous. And this is why I'm really welcome having someone like Norwegian. Interestingly, we also had a discussion back then about, should you fly that airline, X airline, because I need to get to that renewal thing or not to get that gold? And I mentioned Emirates. Actually, it doesn't have like a cutoff date, which is like most programs when, I don't know, my BA program is like that, my Lufthansa program, Star Alliance program is like when, on 1st of Jan or maybe on the date of your enrollment, you have this 12-month period that is the cutoff date. Emirates has a rollout system, so it always counts no matter what the 12 last month. So you always have a shot at getting on the next level. There's not like, you reset at 0 on the 1st of Jan, for instance.
So it only, when you hit 12 months, it only takes away things that are 12 months old or older.
Older, exactly. Which means,
that's great.
I think that's a very smart program. I mean, especially, let's do that last trip quickly. I have to find a reason why. I mean, I think that sometimes this is overdone. I mean, I'm not as a Navy geek as maybe a lot of our listeners, and I would not do that because at the end of the day, I fly because I need to for work, or I fly because I really love it, obviously, even for leisure, but I would not take a flight just to I need 300 miles to get over the limit. No, I think that's just a very nice way to do it. I mean, we'll talk about Emirates in a few, but I want to still stay about the transatlantic route first, because there was this news that we covered a few episodes ago about this company called Boom, which wants to create the new supersonic, and we're both like, they have a great team of people that work in the industry, so they look very serious. But I mean, come on, doing supersonic, it looks like since the days of the Concorde, nobody will do it. Well, only last week, they're basically announcing that they will have a prototype ready this year to fly, which is pretty staggering, actually.
It is, and it's a scaled down small version of what they eventually want to do, which is a 40-seat, I think, version of the plane. And they got investment from the Virgin Group, or was it Virgin Galactic? It was a Virgin entity.
Is it investment, or is it like a promise to order planes?
I think it's both.
Okay,
I think it's both.
What staggers me in this story, because again, I trust them. I think when you look at, especially at the team, they're not just people who just blah 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 and talk. They actually have delivered in their career stuff, so they are probably doing this. Is that usually, if you look at the program of the 787, the 380, or even smaller planes, the development is 7 to 8 years. So this company basically, I mean, I'm sure they've done work before they went public of their existence, but we heard about this company last year, and this year they already have a product, even if it's a smaller scale prototype or whatever, but it's super fast. It's almost unbelievable.
It's very encouraging. I think they're taking the kind of the fast iteration approach to it. And the airframe, I think, is, and I'm certainly not an aeronautical engineer by any stretch of the imagination, but from what I understand, so much of supersonic travel is less about the airframe and its ability to take that kind of stress, and far more about the engine. And even with that, it's less about can you create the power but can you do it efficiently and quietly? And that's what they seem to have cracked a long time ago. And now they just have to put the whole experience together. So this is one of the first things that I'm not going to be cynical and pessimistic about and go, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. I honestly think they have a very, very good shot at this.
Yeah. Boeing is also working on such a program. So we'll see. Maybe we'll actually see supersonic flights in our lifetime.
And I hope so.
That would cut the travel time to the US by half at least, I think. So it's really quite,
because we spent ever since we shelled supersonic as an industry, there was some sketches in the late part of the 20th century, but nothing ever came off the drawing board. We've focused on efficiency, and we've cracked that. And we're now looking at doing, the longest flight now is Dubai, Auckland. I think, 17, 18, 19 hours at a push. We can do it. We can get pretty much wherever we want to go. These planes, they have to do it, but we're pushing the distance of what we can all endure.
Yeah, pushing what we can endure. I don't know if you've seen, since we were in the US, American is actually now selling a very cheap economy fare, which doesn't allow you to have access to the overhead bins.
Yeah, good luck with that, guys. That's a great way to start a fight on an airplane. And actually, you know what? It's interesting because American and United have both rolled out these like ultra cheap fares to compete with Spirit and Frontier. It's just bad. I mean, and BA are doing it here. BA have just completely diluted their product. And of course, it happened right when I qualified as a gold card holder with them. They're doing buy on board now for European routes. I think it's where the industry is headed, even for legacy carriers who are supposed to be full service.
There was this very interesting, I don't know if you've read it, on Skift.
I did.
There was the interview of the BA British Airways CEO. It's very eye-opening because you can see the guy, you can see that there's a problem of culture within the organization. I'm not talking about the staff here, the frontline staff that you talk to, but the very legacy structure, the legacy thinking and mindset. And this guy tries to dislodge, and of course there's cost cutting, and of course the passengers are not happy, and of course there's a lot of stuff that we can complain about, and rightfully so. But at the same time, you can feel the guy is like, our cost structure is like 5 times the ones of any like EasyJets or Ryanairs or, even Norwegians and stuff. It's like, we cannot survive like this. So how can we do it? And, the interview is really, I'll put the link in the show notes, but the interview is really, really eye-opening.
It is good. And I have been a huge critic of a lot of the cost-cutting measures that they've done because it's just really made the product suffer, especially the premium product. If you go on the BA forum on Flyer Talk, it's just scathing, absolutely scathing. But, I absolutely get where he's coming from in some regards because they have a huge pension deficit that they can't touch, they can't do anything. So the only place where they can really reduce their costs is on the frontline service, and now they're trying to renegotiate a bunch of union deals, and of course that always gets messy. So they've had a series of strikes already this year. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I have to say, my 2 recent flights, when we were finally in the air, were very, very, very good. We can talk about the 10-hour delay another time, but yeah, BA are definitely in transition.
We'll talk about it maybe at the end because we're talking about JFK and the delay appended JFK. So why not remind me? So we'll cover it. I only flew a few times with BA in the past year. The last ones was maybe I went to actually Orly, which is the second airport in Paris. It was not a long trip. It was okay. But on these sort of flights, there's almost no. The price was competitive with the likes of low cost carriers. So that's why I flew them. It was okay. But it's true that. What I liked in the article about, in the interview, because it's actually an interview of the CEO of British Airways, is that, yes, there's a lot of problems, like you just mentioned, the pension stuff that, because it's a legacy and they have to deal with that legacy. But at the same time, it transpired that there was also organizational issues in the mindset of people. That's the way we used to do things and we don't want to change, which happens to every other corporation that has been doing things the same way for the past 50 years or so, whatever. And I still hope that they're going to, pull through and, because BA is an iconic brand, an iconic airline. So
I think they'll be fine. I think this is the stuff that hurts right now. And these types of things are most noticeable when you're taking away from an existing experience. And I if you come on board, Is business and first comparable to any of the ME3? Not even close. And I would argue that Virgin Atlantic has quietly slipped past them as a better airline in the short term. But I think they will recover and they'll be able to scale enhancements a lot more efficiently once they've gone through this very painful restructuring and cost cutting.
No, you're gold. I'm still silver. I think I have like a month and a half to get gold, so I might just go over the line. I don't know, because I'm not traveling too much these days anyway because of my family situation. But I actually flew, because since you just mentioned the quality of the premium product in the airlines in the Middle East, I flew as well a few times with Qatar, which is why actually I reached silver, and I flew with a very, very strange route. It was, I think, let me just check here back, it was in September, so it was just after we recorded our last show, which was very successful with Tony Tyler. I flew from, I think I did a London-Warsaw with LOT, then I did Warsaw, Doha, Doha, Dubai, Dubai, Doha, Doha, Warsaw, and that was in a day and a half.
Wow.
It was just insane. And actually it was super cool because, that Doha Dubai route is super short. It's like an hour. But on the way back, we were upgraded to a 350, I think it was. That was really cool. It's the third time I flew the 350, and I was in the premium cabins. It was really, really nice. It's interesting because there are premium cabins. I was in business class. They don't have first unless you are on the 380, I think, which, this plush, whatever stuff they have. Plus, I will never pay for that anyway.
No.
Nor my clients will, by the way. But it's interesting how I flew many different products during that trip. I flew the 350, as I just mentioned. I flew the Dreamliner, and I flew the 330 because, Warsaw, Doha, I would guess is not a premium route for them. It's not a route that, put their newer planes. So we're flying there are 330 or 340 now. Anyway, so an older version, and you could see that every single plane had a different business product. Every single one.
Really?
And there was, of course, the very new ones on the 350 and Dreamliner are very similar. They're not exactly the same, but they're almost similar, and they are the ones you want to get to. On older airplanes, ouch. I mean, I was very lucky that the seat next to me was not taken on the way back. So it was twice the 330 and twice it was a different product. So I had two generations. One was a traditional, the old seats, that are not fully lie flat, that you would find still, in the last 15 years. And the other was a kind of a lie flat, but so cramped that, I'm, again, 6'5", and I couldn't even sleep on the side. It was very, very strange. All that to say one thing is that Al Baker is about to announce, apparently, if you listen to the rumor, to their new super business seat. He's been calling that he's been pushing that rumor for the past year, which would be, it says, we don't need first class. We'll have these amazing business seats. So I'm wondering what it could be. So we'll probably learn this year if this fantastic, at least, if you trust Al Baker, but Al Baker talks a lot. Yeah. A fantastic product. Maybe it could be like the one they did on, I think this Delta one, which is just a business product, but you still have a door. I don't know.
It'll be very interesting to see because you're right. He does like to talk a big game. So it'll be interesting to see if he can actually match the hype with the product.
My favorite trip, I would say, of almost, I think 2016, I flew, I fly Emirates quite often, like all our listeners know by now, of course, because they must be tired of listening to me talking about Emirates. But for once, on the way back from Dubai to London, instead of taking an Emirates flight, I took a codeshare. I took Qantas because I really wanted. And actually, I think I had said in the past that I think I flew them when I was young. It's still possible. I cannot find the boarding passes, and since now both my parents passed away, I don't have any way to actually make sure that I've actually flown them.
Yeah,
but I said, okay, I'll consider my first flight with them. And I was in first class, actually. So I had seat 1A.
Wow.
And I don't know. I don't know of course, it's a 380. Of course, you're in first class. Of course, you cannot have a bad experience. Let's be honest with that first. But it was quite something. Their seat, revolves. You can faces the front when you are in, landing.
Really?
Or, and then you have a button, and the seat actually goes like a 90, no, maybe not 90, like, I don't know, 70 degrees on the left or the right, depending on which side, I guess, of the airplane you are. And then you face the windows, and at the same time there's a screen, and there's like lots of little parts where you can hide the storage things, and they're like, it's very interesting. But the thing that I really liked the most was just the staff. The staff was fantastic. Honestly, I don't know, because maybe they're Australians, hi Australian friends, but the staff was over the moon epic. I mean, I really had a fantastic time with them. So I cannot, of course, again, our friend Kendall was been telling us after we interviewed Tony Tyler that of course he would defend the airline industry because he's in bed with all the airlines. Yeah, we know the leg room in economy is not getting in the best position. And yes, people like us sometimes have the luck to fly in the premium cabin. But if you have the luck to fly in the premium cabin, please try Qantas. It's quite something. Now it makes me want to go to Australia. I mean, maybe not in first class because I don't have the means and the money to pay for that, but it's really, I'll come again to that because I've taken some pictures and I didn't have time to put them up for the recording of this show, but there was a lot of little things that worked really, really right for that.
It sounds like a hell of a product.
Soft and hard. Interestingly, that most of the passengers had already flown. This flight was from Melbourne. So they already flown from Melbourne. They were, they weren't in the lounge because I guess, they have to clean the plane, etc. So I was an add-on. And the staff was also different because I guess after like God knows how many hours you have to change the staff. But you could feel, they came to me and said, "Oh, how was Melbourne?" I'm like, I just took the flight from here. It's worth doing it, and I'm going to do it again in the future. So back to the UK, the other thing that happened whilst we were not recording was that we got promised a third runway at Heathrow.
Yes, and I'm not convinced it's ever going to happen.
Theresa May, our Prime Minister, she represents people from Maidenhead, so they are over one of the landing pathways. So I believe that many people believe that she would never go for a third runway because she has to defend her constituent. Then I think because of this Brexit thing that is happening and people are, she has to kind of prove that, global Britain, as you call it, like the UK has to be open for business or whatever they want to say in the spin. They're so good at doing so. But then the problem is that apparently, yes, we got to get a third runway, but there's still some other votes to be done through Parliament. So that might not happen before 2018. And then that would lead to a potential opening of that third runway, if we're lucky, by 2025, 2027.
That's incredible, isn't it?
And that doesn't even include the fact that we should have normally another terminal. So will it be the Terminal 6, which would be just next to Terminal 5, or will it be a new terminal or where the new runway is? Nobody knows. Nobody has the money. The fun bit, though, because we're talking about BA, and I just can't believe it. Do you remember when I think the CEO of BA or one of the executives say, "Oh, but we didn't realize that a new runway will destroy our headquarters."
Yeah, of course it would, because they're right on the perimeter road there, on the north side of the airport.
But that's bullshit, sorry for this word, that they would not know about it. They're just like, "Oh, what? They're gonna destroy our building?" Come on, they knew about it. I think it's all a game of trying not to pay for it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Who's going to pay for this?
You know what's the second biggest destination from Heathrow?
No.
Dubai.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about it.
So
right?
what's the first?
I think it's New York.
There's so much capacity to New York.
I don't understand. There's so much capacity and the prices are still so high.
Yeah, the prices aren't great to New York.
98% capacity. The airport is they're not ready to expand. That they need that third runway. Our listeners will know that our position is also that we should let Gatwick have its second runway as well and just be done with it. Right?
Yeah, just drive. Yeah, absolutely.
Back to Emirates. Emirates just recently switched to Rolls-Royce. So first, there was no orders for the 380 in 2016, which actually tells you something. All the orders I'm going to talk about now were orders made before. So the 380 program was supposed to be break even by 2016. Well, there's not a single order. So I'm not sure about where that program is going. Even our beloved 747, the Dash 8, had, I think, 3 passenger orders. We know that this program is not going anywhere probably, but at least you have 3.
Yeah,
not
there's
a single
a few.
one.
Yeah, and there's quite a few cargo orders and a few other bits and pieces. So yeah, like you say, it's not going anywhere. But a very large jet days are gone. They're over.
So Emirates had part of the 50 last 380s they ordered. They switched the engine manufacturers. They went from the Engine Alliance, which is an alliance between Pratt and Whitfield and General Electric. They went to Rolls-Royce, and Rolls-Royce is already equipping some of, I think Air France, a few others. I might do not trust me on that. You can just look it up on Wikipedia. You have all the information. But they did it because apparently I think the range of Rolls-Royce engine was slightly better or something, and maybe they wanted they want to rely on a single engine manufacturer for the entire fleet. But it didn't go that well because Emirates says that the engines are not up to standard, and Rolls-Royce is forced to do revisions to the engines. Some people say it's because of the particular conditions in Dubai, very high temperatures, etc. Some people say it's the quality. I don't know.
That's
Again, we're not experts. If you read through the lines in the various interviews, including from Tim Clark, you can see that Emirates is quite pissed actually at Rolls-Royce, like, hey guys, what's the deal? We are not. So their later delivery, it doesn't change the fact that, Emirates has so much capacity. I think they can wait for a few months to have a new A380. Yeah. But if you're interested in these kind of backstories of the industry, you should go online and read about it.
Oh yeah, it would be very interesting to understand they clearly saw a huge financial benefit for them to switch engine manufacturers, because that's not a small decision. And again, it must have been they must have missed the mark by a long way for Emirates to be so because they have been very vocal about their displeasure. So it'll be once this is all resolved, it'll be very interesting to see. Do they use Rolls-Royce on their 777s? I think they do.
I think they do. You're right.
So there's clearly a pre-existing relationship there. So it'll be interesting to see what actually happened and how it resolves itself.
It will also be interesting to see what they do with their aging 380s, because at some point we don't know if there's a secondary market for the 380s.
Well, yeah, that's another thing, is there doesn't seem to be much of a secondary market for 380s.
I think that Malaysian ended up still flying them. I think
they have one, maybe?
Yeah, maybe one, yeah.
Oh,
I can see it sometimes on Flight Radar, Plane Finder or Flight Radar 24. I can see it like taking off from Heathrow, so I know they have one. But because, so I moved offices, so I'm not exactly on the landing path of Heathrow anymore. My office is now slightly still southwest, so I can still see the planes landing, but they're still a little bit further, so I don't have much noise. But interestingly, I sometimes get the taking offs not right above me. And there's a big difference when a 747 or 400 takes off and when a A380 takes off. They're probably at 4,000 feet when they cross the point of where is my office, and there's a difference.
Difference between the 380 and the 747?
In terms of noise.
Oh, yeah, I believe it. I flew on a 747 to New York, and I'd forgotten how loud it is compared to inside the cabin, compared to the 380 or the Dreamliner. And, it was both of my planes I flew on were at least 18 years old. They're not young, sprightly airplanes with young, sprightly engines. So I shouldn't be surprised, but it's been a while since I've flown on one and realized how noisy it can be. But thank goodness for noise-canceling headphones.
Oh, since you're on that. So what kind of noise-canceling headphones do you have?
I have the Bose Quiet, the ones that you recommended. The wired ones, not the Bluetooth ones.
So that's the one I had. Bose Quiet Comfort, I guess 30, 25?
25, I think, is the one I have.
For years, for me, for the past decade, mostly, if you were telling me noise-canceling headphones, the answer would be, and probably what most of the people listening to us would be, well, Bose. That's it, right? That's the answer. People will always go for Bose. We know that, Bang & Olufsen and Sennheiser and Philips and others all try, their hand at noise cancelling. And there are some of them are good, but in terms of the noise cancelling, I'm not talking about the sound, but the noise cancelling effect, the best ones are Bose. Well, let me tell you something. There's a new king in town. I have the iPhone 7, no jack, blah, blah, blah. People always complain. I don't complain. I don't care. And I got used to wireless headphones because I have a small pair. They're not noise cancelling, but just, here when I go to, in London, when I just walk around. And I got used to I don't have to have a cable. That's pretty cool, actually. So I was in the market for Christmas, a pair of noise cancelling headphones, the over-the-ear ones, the one that I really like to have when I fly. And also sometimes when I take simply the train or whatever. Of course, the answer was, Bose Quiet Comfort 35, which is, again, the wireless version if you have. But Sony MDR 1000X, my God, there were very few reviews when I bought them, but now you can just go online, so you don't have to trust me. The reviews are over the moon. They all say it's 10 out of 10 or 100 out of 100. These are probably the best headphones I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
Bluetooth, obviously, so it works really well. They have a few things that really make them, for me, completely amazing. First is the sound. It's not, the noise cancelling is admittedly better than Bose. I mean, again, we're talking about maybe small difference.
Right.
I flew them recently on various flights, and I did one thing, actually. I left home, went to Heathrow, took a flight, arrived in Geneva, and then went to my place in Geneva. And all along I had headphones on. I never almost stopped them unless, I was at a counter to show my passport, etc.
Right.
I was cut off from the world for the entire thing. There's not a single sound that comes in. And the quality of the music is, compared to Bose, for me, there's no difference. Compared to Bose, the quality of the Sony is actually really amazing.
Wow.
So honestly, guys, there's a few things that I really like. There's controls on the headphones directly. It's like touch controls. So you wanna put the sound up, you just move your finger up on the right hand side
Wow.
of the and it just goes up, it goes down. You can stop the music by a tap, you can replay by 2 taps, you can go forward, backwards. And there's one thing that I really adore is that if you put your hand like in a cup and you cup your headphone,
Yeah.
suddenly you go back into listening mode. So it stops everything and you can listen what goes around you. So there's an announcement at the gate. You just do that and you can suddenly listen as if you were there. And then you remove your hand and it goes back into noise cancelling with the music
That's
on.
very clever.
Battery life is amazing. There's no actual battery because Bose is always having like these small AAA batteries.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was like, by the way, I think I told you, I was in Dubai airport a few months ago, and I was looking for AAA batteries because I had, the wired version of Bose, and like they ran out of AAA battery at Dubai airport.
What?
Yeah, they told me we don't have anything. I was like, come on. I went to 3 shops in Terminal 3 and they said, no, we don't have any. Sorry, sir. You have to come back tomorrow. I'm like, I'm not coming back tomorrow. I have a flight to take.
Wow.
So guys, MDR-1000X, probably the best headphones I ever had. Again, I'm not talking about these high-end headphones that you can find for musicians and stuff. I'm talking about
Consumer,
traveler,
yeah.
and I'm talking consumer grade. It's expensive, but it's truly worth the price. Again, Kenai, our friend, when you sent me that email, because you sent me an email, have you seen those? And never replied. Actually, again, I already had them, and it's really amazing. What else? You heard about the fact that we're stopping the research for the MH370?
Yeah, that was sad but inevitable. I think we've really, 3 years and 50,000 square miles of searching. We really haven't found much at all other than a few little bits and pieces. So I can understand why the governments that are footing the bill have decided to give it away for the foreseeable future.
Will we ever know?
I don't think so. I think it will remain an unsolved mystery for a very long time unless, if you're not actively searching for it, how are you going to find it?
Yeah. The other thing, interesting, you remember you raised a question with Tony Tyler about the problems with lithium-ion batteries and how it became a much bigger problem. Have you heard I don't know if it's a rumor, but it's been said I've read it a few times, that the Egypt Air crash that happened a few months ago might have been because the pilot's smartphone, which he put, and there's actually pictures from the video feed, which he put in front of him in the cockpit, the battery caught fire, which then could have actually created a fire in the plane which crashed.
Wow, I didn't know that.
We don't know, but if that is proven, it's another case of problems with the lithium-ion batteries.
Goodness me.
I don't
That's
know. Yeah.
I did not see that. That's extraordinary.
I'm going to finish with one more story before we go to JFK because it touches you. We mentioned at the top of the show the difficulties of Lufthansa and others, BA. Lots of strikes actually currently. If you fly BA, guys, be careful. There's strikes almost every week by BA now. Cathay Pacific, cost cutting.
Yeah, I've seen this. I know that they've had some very difficult years and some economic pressures in the region, some economic instability in the region. And I think they had a really big misstep with some fuel hedging a few years ago that really they're still paying the price of, and they're having to trim back. It's not unprecedented for Cathay, and they have always had strong leadership, so I think that they'll be fine because they're still an outstanding airline, easily one of the best in the region, if not the best. So I think they'll be fine. But it's tough times for airlines when an airline like Cathay is struggling.
I wanted to fly them. I went to Hong Kong, I think in November. And I wanted to fly them, but God, they're expensive flying from London. And I ended up flying Emirates because I have miles and I could get upgraded if I wanted, etc., the usual excuse. But I really want to fly them. God damn it.
Yeah, they are extraordinarily expensive compared to everybody else on similar routes. I think there are some where they're comparable, sort of intra-Asia, but you still pay. I mean, there's been a big influx, which I think is actually part of their problem, of low-cost carriers and new competition in the Southeast Asia region, so that the price difference is much more noticeable than it used to be.
And the competition from China is rising as well.
Yes.
At one point, we'll see some of these big airlines in China having a say in a much bigger play in the world airlines. I mean, they're still going to be China-centric, but we could see some airlines going into directions that are much like the Cathays and the Singapore Airlines and doing, Fifth Freedom routes, etc. I think we'll see that.
I do too. They're aggressively expanding. They're aggressively acquiring not just airlines, but airport infrastructure. I think it's going to be a very interesting decade for China.
By the way, I have to check. I think Singapore Airlines does stuff like Manchester to Brazil or something. I don't know.
They have a lot of weird routes. They have that wonderful JFK Frankfurt route.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And
yeah, but it's amazing. It's they're really playing that fifth freedom to the max. I mean, which I appreciate because again, I flew as well to Singapore. I think it was in October, and I wanted to fly Singapore Airlines because they have these kind of slightly newer version of their product in the 380s, but again, too expensive. So I ended up flying again Emirates. I mean, I'm not complaining about Emirates, guys, because it's a great product. I'm just saying that sometimes I wish I could just sleep for 11 hours straight and not having to stop in Dubai.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, because that's the price you pay, I suppose.
Yeah, I want to finish with that actually before we go to JFK. Sorry. Did you experience a lot of turbulence lately in your flights?
It's really interesting you say that. Yes. The New York flights, going over to New York especially, we crossed two very, very strong jet streams. On the way back, we had a jet stream at our tail, so it wasn't particularly bumpy. It could have been. And what's funny is that like 3 or 4 years ago, I wrote a blog post on my now defunct personal blog about some studies saying that we were going to see a lot more turbulence in transatlantic, and I think it's coming to fruition.
There's a new app called the Sky Guru. It's actually, I've never tried it yet, so I cannot vouch for it directly, but the reviews are pretty good. It's an app that works even in offline mode, so if you're in airplane mode and you're in flight, which basically acts as a pilot sitting next to you, and it tells you what's going on. So there is, of course, before you take off, there is some turbulence forecast. They will tell you, watch out there because of that kind of winds, etc. But the most interesting bit is, especially if you're afraid of flying, but also if you're not, if you're just curious, it provides you real-time explanation of what's going on and why it happens. Especially like if you see, like, some people say, why is the engine doing a different noise now? Because maybe they changed the regime. The app will actually tell you live, and it's on the iPhone. I don't think it works on Android, or they haven't released something yet. It will use, the microphone, it will use the sensors,
Wow.
the billions of sensors the iPhone has to detect all the kind of ambient noises and tell you what's going on. It's myskyguru.com. I think it's a great idea.
I do too, and it looks like it's like $20 for the pro version, but they have a free version as well. I often look at turbulenceforecast.com just out of interest for when I'm flying to see if I'm going to be able to sleep or if I should schedule my trying to get to sleep before we cross a particularly aggressive jet stream. And that's a very, very good site as well. But I'm going to get this. This looks fun.
So let's go now to JFK. We never done JFK. Why? Because we always have an issue with these big airports because they take forever to cover. So our coverage now in the next few minutes will obviously not be full, but still. Do you like JFK, Alex?
I have a love-hate relationship with JFK on so many levels. I think it's a spectacular airport. It's a storied airport. It's an impressive airport. It's gotten much better in the last 5 years, I think. But it's still a pain in the ass to get to from Manhattan.
My God.
And I thought when we went with my 6-year-old son last week, and we caught the BA have an 8 a.m. flight. Almost all of the other flights are in the evening. They're red eyes. And this is an 8 a.m. flight. We needed to catch it for scheduling reasons. And we left our hotel at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. I thought there's never going to be any traffic. And of course, there was an accident on the Van Wyck, and we didn't move for 45 minutes. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, my flight was delayed for 10 hours, so it meant nothing. But
I cannot. No. You telling me the story about that? I cannot believe you didn't know that before going there. How the hell did they not tell you?
yeah, I mean, so we were stuck in traffic, like not moving at all, and Google Maps was showing like an hour delay, and I thought, well, we'll still make it, but it's gonna be a little close. I'll just check on the BA app and make sure that everything's on time. And I pulled it up and I was like, looking at the numbers, I was still bleary-eyed and tired. And I was like, those numbers don't make sense. What is happening here? And then there was a notification, not a push notification, but there was just a thing at the top of the app that said, looks like this flight's been delayed. And I was like, this has got to be a typo. This is showing a 10-hour delay. This is not right. And I haven't been told anything. So I called the BA Gold line and they're like, yep, 10 hours. And I was like, okay, now what? And why? And they just said, go to the airport. We don't know why. At the airport, it was obviously chaos. As we're all standing there, we get a text message saying the flight's been delayed. And we're like, great, thanks. And the BA on the ground in JFK did not handle it well at all. I tried to see if I could get on the Virgin flight because we really had to be home. And they just literally laughed in my face. They eventually, they did not handle it well on the ground, but they said that there was a mechanical issue. The part had to be flown in on a BA flight from London. And then by that time we would have missed the curfew for Heathrow. So we couldn't, even if the fix took 20 minutes, we still would not have been able to leave until 6:00 that evening. So they're like, we're going to bus you to a hotel or you can stay in the lounge for 10 hours. And I was like, oh, we'll go to a hotel. And they're like, we'll feed you. What they failed to tell us until the very last minute was that the hotel was at LaGuardia. Yeah, so the bus was supposed to come at 7. It didn't. By 8:00, it still hadn't come. So I got in a taxi with my son, who's only 6 and had been up since 4:00 in the morning. Hung out at the hotel, just killed time and got back. And when we got through security, which was a nightmare, again, the people on landside for BA were not good. But when we got into the lounge, they were outstanding. When we got on the flight, the captain gave a very, very detailed and thorough explanation and apology of what happened, said that they'd asked and received special dispensation from Heathrow to land early and be prioritized because we had a very quick flight. It was under 6 hours because of a strong tailwind. But now I have to go through the process of EC 261 compensation, which I gather is not a fun process. I know that there's services, I think our friend Greg Annandale did this once with Norwegian, through a third
There's
party.
a few actually, yeah.
But I'm going to try and do it direct.
It would be nice also for us just to know how it works because I know these sites do it for you, but they take like a 30%
and I don't think
commission.
I think it should be a straightforward enough process where 10-hour delay, mechanical delay. The mechanical issue happened mid-flight on the inbound flight, so it's not something that was a part defect or something that they can get around. So I'll keep you updated with the process. It won't be great, but that was out of Terminal 7.
So how is that terminal? Because I don't know it. How is it?
It's very small, almost exclusively One World, and very heavy BA presence there, obviously. BA have a fairly big, very good first lounge, small, but and a good business class lounge. But it is a very, very small terminal. The good thing is that if you have a gold card or you're flying in first or business on BA, there's dedicated check-in, dedicated security, which is very, very fast. And the last time I was in JFK before this flight in January, I did the JFK Lucy A318 flight.
Nice.
All business class, which was so much fun. So much fun. It's just great. I mean, because...
But how is that? Is that a regular BA business product? Or is it
it's a different one. It's 2x2 in this tiny little A318. And it's a full lie-flat seat. They have, unlike almost every other BA flight, they have cell phone service across the Atlantic, and they know exactly who the audience is because before you even push back, the lights are off and you can sleep.
Wow.
If you want to eat, you can. They'll bring you a lovely meal. The staff were excellent. They give you, as you come off the airplane, like a lunchbox with a breakfast pastry, some coffee, and fruit, and you can get off the plane and eat breakfast on the dedicated car service.
This is awesome.
To an arrivals lounge
great.
at a hotel where you can go and take a shower and change. And because the flight lands at like 6:30 in the morning.
I would say the only thing that's missing, and it might be coming soon, although maybe not in Lucy, it's basically pre-clearance. Because if you could arrive in the US and go directly to
You do
Sydney,
that.
that would be amazing.
They have it because you have to stop in Shannon Airport in Ireland on the way.
Oh, yes.
Because the
of course.
A318
Yeah, you're
won't
right.
make it that far. So you get off while they refuel, and you get a snacker, and they give you an iPad as well loaded with content. So you don't have a moving back, but that's not the end of the world. And while they're refueling and recatering, you go through U.S. immigration. So you land and you go straight out at JFK. Obviously, you don't have that coming the other way because you don't need to stop, but it's Lucy, and immigration takes 30 seconds. It's really good because everybody's a business traveler. Everybody's on and off very quickly. I did a mixed class fare, so I flew out in premium economy on a 747, but back in business, and it was very, very reasonable. I am a huge fan. Of course, they just reduced the frequency from twice a day to once a day on that, and they're reallocating 318s to European routes, which I think is a huge mistake because it's such a great service.
I have a question here. Did you eat during the flight?
In fact, they recommend, and they have in the business class lounge at JFK, they have, sort of tapas and nibbles and stuff. And then if you're a business class passenger, you can go and get a fairly mediocre hot meal, but only, not if you're gold, not if you're silver, only if you're traveling business class. And they encourage you, go and eat so you can sleep on the airplane. And that's what I did. Of course, in the first lounge, if you're a gold card holder, you can go eat better food in there.
I was asking that because it reminded me of, we guys promised you will get back to JFK. It reminded me another news that I read is that BA thinking to go on-demand food for the business class across all their routes, especially the transatlantic one, which it would be one of the first, because the only airline I flew where I had like on-demand food was in first class on Emirates. So it's, there's like, 8 seats, 12 seats, depending on the configuration. So it's very easy to manage. When you have more seats, and especially what you just said, when you have someone next to you, imagine to organize that is not easy because you have, let's say Alex is the window. I am on the aisle next to you. I want to sleep and I'm sleeping, but you want to eat. The crew has to go past me and try not to wake me up and give you food. And if you want to eat at 3 a.m. or whatever, it's your choice. So, whereas if you have a smaller cabin with all aisle access, of course, it's not such an issue. So I don't know how that will pan out.
I don't know either, because like you say, on a 380, there's a lot of business class seats, and I don't know if BA have the service culture to pull it off. I can see why they're doing it, because I think you could reduce the catering costs substantially, because now you're just putting food in front of people and they're like, oh, fine, I'll eat it then. But if people have to order their food, then I think people will probably go, I can't be bothered, I just want to sleep. But I don't think it's going to be a great move for them.
Like you said, service culture as well. That's also... Do you have enough staff? I don't know. It's going to be a lot of training. We'll see if they do it or not. This is the very heavy rumor. They want to introduce and test that on some routes. Anyway, back to JFK.
What's funny about JFK is that if you are in some of the other terminals, I would actually not eat in the lounge, because like there's a Shake Shack two Shake Shacks actually in Terminal 5. There's a Joel Robuchon, Terminal 4 at the Shake Shack. That might be across multiple. Anyway, there's Joel Robuchon. There's really good food in some of those terminals, and I would absolutely go and eat those before I ate lounge food that's sort of basically like school food catering. You don't have those options in Terminal 7 at all.
Yeah, it's a very old terminal because I fly mostly, so the two terminals are really I've flown Terminal 8, I think this was a long time ago. Let's say the two terminals I actually fly is Terminal 4, which, by the way, is a lot of people who fly to New York will know Terminal 4 or Terminal 7 if you're one world. Terminal 7 also has, I think, ANA. But Terminal 4 has, the most of the Delta and SkyTeam, and it also has Emirates, and it has Asiana, and it has Etihad, and it has Singapore Airlines. So, it's pretty new, actually. I mean, I think
they've really redone it, and it's... Terminal 4 has got some great food, and it's nice and light and airy. And
I remember in the past 3-4 years, they were doing refurbishments. It wasn't perfect. And now the last time I flew, which was last year, and 2016, a few months ago, was actually... It's up to standards to an international airport. Of course, you're not talking about the airports of the Far East, the Incheons and the Changi, but it's a potent terminal. I would say that the experience of getting there, to board there is better than the experience of actually landing there. And landing in JFK is always, you seem to always end up in some sort of like -5's garage or something. There's no lights, and you're like, am I really in New York? That's the first thing I see. Is like, you can see a lot of people are startled, a lot of tourists who are coming. They're like, where am I going? Why am I like in some kind of underground passway where I'm supposed to be in New York? The layout is not really, easy. You kind of find an Uber is not always easy. I've tried to use as well the train, but that's a nightmare that they've never built some kind of direct connection. You have to
change. In terms of getting to it's a nightmare. It's absolutely awful. And we were fortunate, my son and I, on this recent trip, because we arrived at 11 o'clock at night and left in the morning. So that's the time of day to do it because there's no traffic relatively for New York.
Terminal 4, I would say, is a nice terminal. It's not LAX International Terminal, but it's a nice terminal. Terminal 1, which I flew recently, I think also it dates back from the 90s. I flew it because I flew Norwegian, and they fly from Terminal 1. It's much smaller, but it's okay, actually. I didn't have... Security was okay, TSA was okay. So I wouldn't say, I would say the experience of landing in New York is worse than the experience of taking off. And the views, when you land, if you're lucky, you have the views over New York. They're not the same type of views you get over Newark. When you get you land along Manhattan, but you still see the very, very nice view. And you have to be seated on the right-hand side of the plane, so F, I would say, or something, to actually see that view. But that's a nice first sight if it's your first time in New York, not the underground garage when they let you or something.
And, that's very true. And I think the only other thing that's worth looking at is you do get the most extraordinary collection of airlines and aircraft at JFK. No matter what time of day or what time of year, the amount of airlines from all over the world that fly there is really fascinating.
And there is the terminal, I think, the Terminal 6 is the one with JetBlue? Yes. I think it's actually, people say it's very nice
T5.
With the sky roof and whatever.
Yeah,
and,
that's a cool terminal.
You can see the very famous TWA terminal. I think it's not used, but they have planned to do something with it, the hotels or whatever. That I hope they never destroy.
They have to treat that very, very delicately. I feel like I've been there a lot recently, but there's good eats, there's good views. It's a pain in the butt to get to.
That's the best way to actually synthesize that. Guys, if we forgot anything about JFK, and I'm sure we did, let us know. Facebook, Twitter, email, everything is on the website. And we'll have more stories the next time we record. Might be next week or the week after. I'll push this episode very quickly so people will be satisfied. Thank you all for having beer with us while we were absent, and see you next time.
It's good to be back.
Happy travels.
On behalf of Layovers and the entire crew, we would like to thank you for joining us on this podcast today, and we're looking forward to seeing you on board again next week. Flight attendants, please prepare for landing.